It almost feels like every week there's a new plugin, a new game-changing plugin. I know I review a lot of plugins on my channel. I try to show you some like good ones, but I feel like what's happening for me and maybe happening for you as well is that when it comes to mixing, I'm a little bit overwhelmed and I'm trying to use all the plugins, all my favorite plugins. So what I've done is simplified my approach when it comes to mixing. I've created a template which I've called Mix Template 2025 Clean. So I'm just trying to simplify my plugins. So I'm going to show you which are my favorites and which I'm going to carry through 2025 in my mixing template when I'm mixing. So the plugins I'm going to show you, they're not set in stone. I'm going to change some when I need to and swap some out. So I'm going to open up my template and show you what's going on. Here's my template. Yes, it might look like there's a lot of plugins on there, but like I said, I'm not going to be using all of them. Some I will swap out, and these are just my current favorites that I like to use. So my approach to mixing, going to be top down, starting from my pre-fader, which is my main art, nothing on the main, on output 1 and 2. Even though there's some plugins on there, that's just for me to keep in the back of my mind, just in case I want to drop them onto my pre-fader. Going backwards, we've got the Ampex. So the idea is to have some saturation and have everything running through the pre-fader bus and then get a decent sound. So when I go backwards, I can do the tweaks necessary. So that's going to give me a nice bit of saturation. The Pro L2, which I didn't turn on, that's going to be my limiter of choice. So I'm going to get the overall mix peaking around -3 dB, -6. And then when I turn it off, I should have a decent amount of headroom. But I just putting it on there so I can get a good understanding of how hard the beat's hitting, how hard the mix is hitting. And it's not something that I used to do. I got this again from a good engineer who suggested that I should do that. So that's what I'm going to do from now on. I've got the Oxford limiter on here as well. That is just for me, just for the enhanced curve, just to add a little bit more saturation if I need it. Not necessarily going to use that. The God particle, I think I'm going to get rid of that. I don't think I'm going to bother with that anymore because I'm using gold clip, which I can just clip if I need to, add a little bit more body and weight to the sound if it needs it. The shadow hit, then I'll be using the SSL bass compressor, or I might use the Shadow Hills compressor, depending on the type of flavor and the sound I'm going for. So that's my choice of compressor, bass compression there. My Pro Q3, just my favorite, notching out a few frequencies that I feel will be bad, usually are a bit off sounding. I tend to always notch out 3.5 kilohertz, which is sensitive area of our hearing. These won't necessarily always be on. Like I said, it's always subject to change. And then the end console. So everything's running through the end console. I've already labeled what I'm gonna have running through these different faders, different channels, different groups, the drum and bass, music, vocals, and effects. And then I've got 4 other faders there if I decide to group some other sounds. All right, so let's talk about my vocal chain. So for my vocal chain now, my main vocals, the actual channel is sparse. For plugins, there's hardly anything on it. I'm going from left to right this time. So I'm going to have the NS1 on there just to, if it needs extra cleanup, some Pro Q3. I don't know why I always have that sitting on there, but that's what I start off with, and I always, most of the time, I end up just deleting it. And then some Arvox just to push the vocal and make it more up front. Might not need it, might need it. Then I've got my bus, which is a parallel mix, and that is, it's never changed. I've had that for years. From Recording Revolution, I think it was, Graham Cochran, and that's just a bluey CLA 76 on there, compressing crazy, and then some Pro Q3 just cutting out some lows and a little bit of 4 kilohertz, and then just to squeeze it off with the limiter. And then I'm sending all the signal, so every single sound that I use, all the signal will go to that premix parallel mix fader, and it's only small levels, hardly anything. If it's too loud, I can just pull it back. If I need a little bit more, then I can add some. So my vocal channel will be going to a main bus, and I've got 2 choices here: main bus and alternate Vox plugins. So if I forget some plugins, because I do tend to forget some plugins, I can get a nice reminder of, yeah, you've got these you could use, or yeah, whatever. If I can remember what I've got, then I'll find it. So all I'm doing is running that through the end console, and then Procreate 3 just to do a bit of cleanup if it needs it. And Spectre, I like Spectre. Adds a nice little bit of saturation in specific frequencies, and you've got different modes as well, different modes of saturation, which is really nice. Really do like Spectre. It's nice on drums as well. Bass and bass as well. Then I've got the UAD Fairchild, and that just, as soon as you turn it on, it just makes the vocals pop, and that's because it's doing a little bit of volume boost, so it's going to do that. But I like the sound of it. If I don't use that, then I'll probably use the Shadow Hills A compressor, which does a similar thing, so it's got a nice tone to it. And if I need some body in the vocals, I use a Jason Joshua preset, which is going to add some squeeze to the low end, and to the high end, which is turned down by about 3 dBs. Then if I need some compression, I'm going to be using the MC compression. If I need some multi-band compression on the vocals, I'm going for the MC404, and that's what I'm going to be using. If I don't use that, then it's going to be the C6. And normally, most of the time, I'm using the C6 just to tweak, to notch out some annoying frequencies. If Pro Q3 doesn't do that, then Soothe 2 will catch all the frequencies that, not all, but it will catch the frequencies that I might have missed out on. So that's going to be on my chain. And then Pro Q3 again, if I need to, just to notch out some frequencies that are still bugging me. And then Oxford Transmod. I like this because it gives you that grit, it gives you that fizziness, spitting, transients. You can really shape your transients with this, and I like that. I've been using that one for years. So that's some of my favorites for the main bus. And then the main bus will be leading out to all main bus. So it'll be lead vocals, ad-libs, and whatever else comes into the umbrella of vocals. And that's just going to be the end console, running through the end console to add a bit of character EQ. My character EQ is going to be the PSP E27. I really like the sound of that. Or the Marg EQ if I need a little bit of air, or I could use Fresh Air by Slate Digital, which is nice. And like I said, I'll use the Shadow Hills. Why is that so small? The Shadow Hills A compressor. Nice on vocals, man. So nice. So I'll be using that. And then C6 if I need to get a little bit more squeeze on the vocals, get it sitting right, then that's there available for me. Oh, and some de-essing, because yeah, some of the time we need to de-ess some of these vocals. And then that's going to be running through the Ampex just to give it that little bit of sheen. Play about the yips, the tapes if needed, and the head, and turn off calibration, and you can just run through without changing and switching up all the different parameters. And then to top it off, a little bit of limiting using the Sonics Oxford limiter, adding a little bit of soft clip if necessary. But I really have simplified my chain. It might seem like it's a lot to you, but like I said, depending on how the mix is going, how the vocals sound, how everything's sitting, I might not need to use all of these. And I already feel like it's like a weight off. I'm not running my sound through a whole heap of plugins, so it's not degrading the signal, or that's the aim anyway. So that's my main vocals. Chorus vocals and ad-lib vocals are pretty much the same, similar. I've got in there the Vertigo, the VSM3 from Plugin Alliance, which is a nice bit of saturation. The thing I must mention as well is, even though I've got some saturation plugins on here, my approach to doing it now is to treat it like it's a desk, treating the mix like it's a desk. Instead of putting a saturation plugin on the actual vocal channel or the bus channel, if it was on a desk, I'd have to route it out to a saturation unit or or if I'm trying to do parallel, it's going to go to a different channel. So that's my thought process now. I'm going to use aux channels to saturate. So if I need a bit of saturation, I'm going to bus my channel to an aux and slap a saturation on there. And that way, if something else needs a bit of saturation, it can use saturation on there as well. So that's the way I'm gonna approach mixing that, and I'm actually excited about using this new method. It's not new, but for me, different approach. So yeah, and then on the I'm using the VSX headphones, so the different rooms will help me to better understanding how the mix is going to translate, and this has been really helpful for me just lately. I've been probably had it about 6 months, I'd say, and still getting used to it. Still trying to find my favorite room at the moment. I would say my favorite room is to mix in is Mike Dean's, because you've got that nice low end, and you've got the near fields, you've got the mains. But then I will skip through all of these at some time near the end of the mix. I'll skip up through all of them just to hear how everything's sounding. And if you haven't got that VSX, it's not the end of the world, but it does help. So like I mentioned just a minute ago, the parallels, these will be my parallel channels. I can add more if I need to. And it's just the usual suspects with the effects. Got the delays, reverbs, which I'm using the UAD T140, Valhalla, vintage verb or R verb just to give me a bit of space, and then Oxford reverb just to give it a bit of height in the mix. I've been doing that for years as well, and I absolutely love that one. And then we've got the repeater for slap delay, and then we've got Echo Boy as well for the to give me some delays. And I also like the H delay, so I'll be using that a lot as well. So what I like to do vocals, just to give it a bit of width, is I'll use either the meta flanger with a setting called Breezy Wide Vox. This was from Phil Tang, I believe his name is. He mixed a few tracks for Chris Brown and Rihanna, and it just gives it a nice little wobble and space between the music and a bit of depth, which is nice. And if I want a bit of width, I'm going to be using the doubler or the doubler 4. And the reason for the doubler 4 is I went back to one of my old mixes and I liked the way that the vocal sound, so I just went to see what was on the width Vox, and yeah, it was that. So that's why I put it there, just for a reminder. So depending on the mix, if it's a full mix and I've got kicks, drums, bass, instruments, then I've got my buses here. Kick, drums and bass will go to an all drums bus, which will have Shadow Hills on there, Black Box if I need it, and Spectre, which adds a nice little bump for the kick, and then standard clip just to clip it, or I'll use orange clip or gold clip track just to get a bit of clipping and tame some of those peaks. I forgot to mention, I'm going to be using the HG2MS on the pre-fader, depending on how much saturation I've got going on throughout the mix. But what I'm going to do is be using this to add a bit of width, bit of separation from the mid and the sides. And I learned this trick from an engineer on YouTube who really knows his stuff, good engineer. So I've borrowed this one, and I'm going to be using that, adding a little pentode and on the mids, and then adding a bit of triode on the sides just to give it a bit of separation, using a density knob just to add a bit more crunch if it needs it, or just take some off. If I don't use the pentode, and then I'm going to just vice versa, the mid sides, and just get the right sound, add in some air if I need it. I know this video seems very wordy, very long, but I just want to share my process on the plugins that I'll be taking with me through 2025 and putting out some good mixes. Did I mention this plugin? So yeah, the Ozone 11 Maximizer, that just adds a bit more volume. I don't know if I mentioned that one earlier. Okay, so yeah, there's that. And if the keys and the strings and instruments have got their own little music channel, and then I can add some more the processing if I need to. Gold clips on there, just to add a bit of color, a bit of warmth. And if I need to, I can shape the transients as a whole, or I can do it individually on the channels or on the buses. But that's there as an option. And then what else have we got? So on the drums, they've got flash, just to add a bit more transients, slow down the sustain and the attacks, just to give it a bit more zip. And what else do we have? Split EQ. I need to mention split EQ. Similar to Transmod, except for it's an EQ. And stick it on vocal for your source. And you've got two functions there, two parameters where you can use the blue one for tone, take some out, add some, and you can use the green one to add some transients. Particularly useful when you've got a sound that is lacking in transients, or you just want to give it a bit more bite. And that's super handy. That's one of my favorite plugins to use, but I feel like it's CPU heavy, very CPU heavy. So my main output, I've already mentioned the VSX. Tonal balance, just to see where I'm at with my tone and the balance, and then reference. Absolutely love this plugin. Just nice to reference songs and just go back and forth and just make sure everything's sounding cool. Similar, I'm in the ballpark and I'm good. The TR5 Fame, I like this plugin because I feel like when I put it on to the pre-fader and I just take these right down, bring the dry up and add just a touch, just a small piece, take out some of the lows, go through, see which one sounds best. And I feel like it just brings everything together, like it just glues everything and sounds good. So there's that if I need to use it. And then Goldfoss, adding just small amounts, no more than 10. Recovery and tame. Just if everything seems like it could do with a little bit more separation, a little bit more of a nicer sound, that everything's tamed and where it should be. And then I got the option to brighten it or sort the bass out. But I tried not to if I don't have to, but it's there if I'm trying to get something done quickly. So that's super helpful. That's super useful. So those are my favorite plugins right now for cleaner mixes. Compared to what I was doing before, it is a lot less heavy. Hope you've enjoyed the video. I know I was talking a lot and there wasn't much audio going on, but at least you get an idea of what plugins you might be able to get hold of, start using, and yeah, just to share and inspire each other to keep creating, keep doing good. Appreciate you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.